Would you be prepared to volunteer to be a border guard for a day to break the strike plan for next week? Around 1,800 immigration officials are due to walk out on Wednesday to protest against changes to their public sector pensions. The Home Office fears the industrial action could result in long queues for travellers arriving in the UK. So civil servants from across Whitehall are being asked to step into the breach and work as border agency staff. They will check passports and monitor who's entering the country at ports and airports. The unions say the suggestion is an insult to the work done by border staff. But would you be a border guard for a day? Is it a good idea to bring in volunteers to avoid long delays for travellers? Would you do a better job? Simon Ward joins us, teacher and broadcaster, who says the Home Office has got to do this. And on the phone is John Rees, political activist. And John, you believe it's wrong for anyone to step in and do the job of the original border guards?
Yes, I mean, what the government are asking people to do is they're asking them to scab to break the strike. The government has failed to negotiate seriously with the unions over this question. They've got a massive strike on their hands. They're trying to scare the public. They're trying to break the strike. And frankly, these people are trained professionals, and it's no good the government pretending that you can just hook people out of some other department in the civil service and give them the job for the day. It's a propaganda exercise, and it's a farce.
Simon Ward, do you think they might do it better?
Well, they could do, Jeremy. Excuse my voice, by the way. I sound a bit like Marlene Dietrich. But I have to say, Jeremy, the government, I think, has a bounden duty to limit the impact of this strike. If a large-scale, widespread strike does go ahead, it'll be ordinary families who will suffer. So I'm all for anything that will limit the damage that will be done by this strike. And we are actually told that each person on those border controls will receive the necessary level of training. Now, even if that does come up short, that's far better than having flights cancelled and people having to wait hours.
Is your worry, Simon, that the civil servants or members of the public who take the place of the border guards will be too strict or will be too lenient?
Well, they could be either. Obviously, they won't have the experience of the people who are there full time. But I just feel that what we just got to pull together, Jeremy, at this. And if by substituting one of these border guards who goes on strike with somebody with not in that particular career, has less experience, then so be it. But these union bosses, Jeremy, have to change their mindset. They won't, of course, because any hint of moderation these days is viewed as weakness by their brotherhood. They have to be seen to be strident, uncompromising, intransigent. And the fact of the matter is, this country cannot afford to go on paying the pensions that it's doing at the moment. We have to do something, and we've got to pull together. So if someone does take the place of an experienced border control guard, I'm all for it, and I would certainly do that myself if required.
As you said, you are now speaking in the voice of Marlene Dietrich. I could never imagine her saying all that.
Would you like me to sing it then? I'll sing it.
I think actually he's speaking in the voice of Margaret Thatcher. It's an uncanny impersonation. But here's an let's pull together suggestion. Every taxpayer in this country has just given the already enormously wealthy Richard Branson £13 per head per taxpayer because of the Northern Rock sell-off. Let's all pull together, and the government, which is in control of this money, this is a bank that we own, let's take that money and give it to the low-paid civil servants, and let's see if that isn't a better let's all pull together solution than trying to break this strike.
We have to keep the markets on board, and I think if we...
please, the markets are what have just produced an absolutely catastrophic recession in this country. Relying on the markets, the mantra of the last 20 years has just destroyed the economy, put 1 million young people, just young people, on the dole. It's led to the greatest level of inequality in this country since Victorian times. Please do not tell us one more time that we've got to rely on the markets.
Don't start comparing our life today with Victorian times. It's a different era. The vast majority of us have never had it so good.
The inequality is greater now than it was in Victorian times. That's from the Office of National Statistics, compiled by the very civil servants who you are trying to reduce their pay.
Let's just go back to the border guards, because that's where we started. John Rees, you're defending these border guards. You want a situation where they go on strike and they're not replaced by anyone.
No, I want a situation where the government stops attacking their pensions, stops attacking their trade union rights, and then we won't have a strike. That's what I want.
But we cannot afford. Do you not understand basic economics? We cannot afford to carry on paying these pensions.
I don't know what your qualifications as an economist are, but I did politics and economics to a degree. So, yes, I do understand basic economics. And what I also understand is you cannot go on impoverishing and diminishing the income of people in this country and expect to have an economic recovery. You are the people and the people who advocate the policies that you're advocating are worsening this recession. It clearly is not leading to a recovery. And you are the people who've got to stop being so strident, stop defending the very rich, and start rethinking the economic policy in this country.
I think that the government has to send out the right messages to the financial markets at this stage, which is what govern our economy.
That's what the government tried to do in Greece. That's what it tried to do in Italy, and that's what's led to an absolutely catastrophic
if you had to step in, Simon, and we may get listeners saying they would step in and take the place of border guards for a day, what would your... I assume you need some training on the passport reader and all that, but what would your policy be? Would it be to say the only way we're going to get recovery is if you basically wave everybody through, because we need 75 million people in this country now, or would you be trying to get people to go back to where they come from?
Well, presumably you're talking about one day on a strike.
Yeah, you could make a difference.
Yeah, I don't think it would make that much difference for one day, but I just support the policy of pulling together and trying to keep the country moving. And as I said at the start of this, the government has a bounden duty to limit the impact of this strike. And I feel by putting other people into those particular slots for the day will help to do that, Jeremy, and I'm all for that. We do not want even longer queues at passport control. We need to take whatever steps are possible to minimise the disruption for ordinary folk.
And John, on this economics point, I know you're an economist and all that, so we defer to your expertise there. But we all know that the government has a massive debt, and it added, I think in August, it added 16 billion to the debt. So they're not spending within their means at the moment, despite the cuts. Where does this money come from that you want to use to pay for these pensions?
Well, many of the banks that we loaned absolutely huge amounts to are now back in profit, and yet there is no bank tax, there is no demand from the banks. They repay the absolutely huge amounts that we loaned them to get them out of the trouble. So that will be one place to start. Another place to start was a very large proportion of the national debt could be recouped at the moment if we cancelled the absolutely useless renewal of Trident, the military, the nuclear called deterrent.
We haven't paid for that yet.
If we cancelled that spending, that could be used by the pensions, which, by the way, we haven't paid for either yet. If we got rid of the war in Afghanistan, which has cost billions over its 10-year duration, that will be another source of revenue. So the government is simply not telling the truth, and it's not looking at the options which could help ordinary workers.
Thank you. Thank you very much, both of you. We started with border guards and we just went everywhere after that. Very grateful. Simon Ward, teacher and broadcaster in Ipswich, and John Rees, round the corner on his mobile, political activist who says it's wrong to break the border guards strike. We'd love your views on this. UK border guards going out. Maybe you think you could replace a border guard and do a better job. I don't know. What is it?